Well, hello, everybody. I'm very excited about this evening because I get to do some of the things that I love. And one of them is interviewing amazing Latina women. And I've gotten connected with this amazing woman called Esthers Santos, who is here with us tonight. And I'm really excited to have her and just talk about her life and her business and everything good that's coming her way, right? And that she would be able to inspire some of you through her story. And so I'm just really excited to hear more about you, Esther. And I wanted to start off, we kind of discussed talking about the business aspect of what you do. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about your business?
Yes, thank you so much, Selina, for having me on. Um, you know, your queen life, that's what I'm about, and us female species are about. And I feel like us as queens, we are a very particular species of women. Um, I am founder and CEO of Your Queen Life. And, in my search for transformation, not just for myself, but for helping women around me that, I've been uh, in the helping industry, if we could say, that for about 15 years. And, I've realized that us women, the ultimate mindset is the mindset of queen. And when we get to realize who we are, then we can ultimately reach our destiny and our potential. And so, what does that mean and what does that look like, right? So, we talk about all things femininity, right? And the fact that, I hear the word queen thrown around a lot, and here's my definition of queen. Queen is not just the woman who has the crown on her head, right? Queen is about the mindset, right? It's the mind that carries the queen. It's the heart that carries the queen. It's the spirit that shines from inside of us, that benevolence that comes from within, the abundance mindset. And so it's really learning how to transform patterns of behavior from our life. And, in my search for my own transformation, really it's helping women do the same and become, who they're meant to become in this world.
That's amazing. And you hit on something so important because we as women really do tend to, and I don't know at what point in our life this happens, but we don't ever have that queen-like feeling, right? And so we run into situations, whether it was, as a child or in a relationship where you kind of feel less than, and you have to come into this place where it's like, wait a minute, I am not any of those things. I am amazing. I was created, to be something great. And you talked about femininity, that we can walk and carry that, so greatly. So I think it's really important. And like you said, it's not just about a crown. Like we have an example of what queens look like, right? Like we have this idea, but really, when you think about it, it's a mindset and it's a way of life. And so I love that. So what do? You were talking about, the transformation. So what is it that you bring or to help the
Yes.
women? Mhm.
So I'm a transformational life coach. We have what's called our Royal Academy. And so, we help women really in this process of becoming queen and what that means and what that looks like. And so there's a binder that we have that we give to women that come in. It's called the My Queen Life Binder. And so what that looks like is every week we will work through a different worksheet in the binder. And so, I found that one of the most significant things that we can do for women is really just show up for them.
Yeah.
And women, I believe the most valuable thing that we can give people is our time. And I've learned to be more of a listener than a talker. And so providing women the space where they can feel supported, where they can feel heard, because a lot of times, like, you can tell somebody, well, I'm listening to you, but if the person doesn't feel heard, if like you're on your phone and paying attention to something else, or have, a short attention span, and, you know, people feel that. People know if you're distracted, if you're not giving them 110% attention. And so I feel like that tailored attention to women, providing that space of that secure space where ideas and creativity can flow. Like, I'm a huge creative, I'm always creating something, either creating a program, creating worksheets for women. Like, I just love to be in that creative space. And so, it's a sacred space where women can grow, where the trust level is absolutely there, and we really help you design your queen life. And so we look at 12 different areas of life, including style, spirituality, your lifestyle, what you want that to look like, sacred spaces in your home. Like, I love decor. If you could see the background, where I am, like, I love decor.
I need help with that.
Yeah, and it's really, especially during the season of pandemic, like, how can we have the life that we live, but live it just more joyfully? Like, I saw a post on Facebook not too long ago, and it said, if I'm too much for some people, then those are just not my people, right? Like, I love to live like extraordinary. I love to create beautiful spaces in my bathroom. Like, everything that I do has to just feel good to me. And so, from my kitchen to all the different spaces I do. And so I think it's learning how to get creative with that in our life. And so it's really an up level in the way that we do things. And women think, well, it takes a whole lot of money to do that. And really it doesn't. It's just the willingness to really, and finding the ideas as to how to get this done and transforming your life in just different ways that you make it more epic. And so we're here to live our most epic life.
And I love that, and you're talking about that. It reminded me of that other one that says, you can't shrink back to make someone else feel comfortable, right? Because I think that
Oh,
sometimes,
yes.
we have such a hard time. Like, it's almost like this inherent, you feel bad for your success sometimes. Not everybody feels that way, but sometimes, like, you feel bad and people make you feel a certain way. But we were created to do great things, and if we get next to someone and they're just uncomfortable, like you said, like, I have to do what I know that I'm called to do, and if that makes you uncomfortable, I'm sorry, but I cannot shrink back, because I am completely negating the very gift that I was given to bless others, and it's a very hard thing to accept, because people are like, they look at certain behavior as cocky, and I've been talking about this a lot, but it's not. It's just, you are walking in your destiny, and what you're doing is you're trying to help women find that destiny. But for those that don't, they tend to feel like, I just don't like her, or what is she doing, why does she have to do so much? But at the end of the day, it's because you're doing what you're called to do. And so other women wouldn't feel that way if they understood who they are. And so I just think it's so important what you're doing, and what we want to set out to do for other women. It's like, hey, this is my lane, but you have a lane too. Let's work together to help you find it. And so I love that. I love that.
And what you said was just so good. And I thought of like stars. God made stars in the sky. He created stars, and they're meant to shine.
Yeah.
Like, you can't go tell a star stop shining, because it's in their nature to
Yeah.
shine. That's who God made them to be. And so when I even think the name Esther, like, it's not just me in terms of meant to shine, but us as women. I feel like I always tell my husband, I thank God for the gift of being a woman and femininity. Thank you, God, for femininity, because I would not change my gender for the world. I love being a woman. I love everything that comes with being a woman. Yes, we've got our things, our emotions tend to just be
Sure.
extra sometimes, but I think that's what makes us so amazing. Um, I believe when God created women, He just said, I'm just gonna make something extra special here, something to like really support Adam, because Adam just needs something to shine in his life. um and sometimes we feel bad. Like, I was on a webinar not too long ago, and I felt like I was the one kind of a little more like overdressed than everybody else, and I started almost feeling bad, like almost like inside of me, like apologizing for, we're used to being in pajamas nowadays, like
Yes.
I made a commitment to myself that being at home, I'm going to do my hair and do full makeup
Yes,
every single day being at home, because even if nobody sees me, like, this is me, right? Like,
exactly.
I could walk around in heels if I want. I mean, I don't, but I'm just saying, and I found myself thinking, like, kind of like feeling a little bad, like, man, maybe I shouldn't dress up this much, right? Maybe I shouldn't. But it's like I had a self check moment. Like, seriously, it was like, girl, stop it.
Mhm.
Like, and sometimes we're there just to set a standard, right? Like, us as women, I believe that more than ever, there is a standard that we need to place in society,
Mm,
because, I mean, from the abuse of women, to, women are just so apologetic. We've been taught to apologize so much for who we are, for not being enough. Men have their strengths
mm,
as men, and as women, I mean, we've been fighting this battle for equality for so long. I mean, from the beginning of time, and I feel like more than ever, this is like the best time to be a woman, because our voice, we have an international platform right now, which is social media and the internet, where there's no place that our voice cannot be heard right now.
absolutely. And I'm in total agreement of that. And, you talk about that, and we do tend to feel almost guilty, guilty for being in the room, guilty for having favor, guilty for being blessed. You know what I mean? Sometimes things happen in our life, and we're just honored and blessed to have it, and then because it happened to you, instead of embracing it and enjoying it immediately, it's like those thoughts come in your head, the enemy's attacking you, like, oh well, look, now they're going to talk about you, and now they're going to say all those things, and you're like, immediately, it's just that inherent thing in us. And that's something that for sure I'm consistently trying to fight. Like, it is okay to be blessed. It is okay to have favor over your life. And what's not okay is, how you treat others in the process, and that's where, but we don't even get a chance to even be kind, because immediately we're just so guilty, like, I don't want to tell anybody, I don't want to do anything. And but I think that we do need to carry that boldness. We need to understand, like, it is okay, just walk in it, and how you treat others definitely plays into that. But ultimately, you have to be okay with, with the path that has been, given to you. And if you don't like it, you change it, but you have to, so definitely, I totally agree with that. That's amazing. I did want to ask you, now you also have a beauty line. Okay, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So I have a skincare line called Queen Esther's Beauty. And oh my goodness, like, it's been such an amazing journey. I worked in the skincare industry for about 10 years before this line came up. It was really more of like a side hustle that I was doing. I was going to college, getting my master's in social work, and I needed to make a little extra money. And so I started, in skincare and in cosmetics. And I was like, yeah, I'll do this for a little bit. And then, but it turned into really a passion that evolved into something that I would have never thought would be what became today. And so Queen Esther's Beauty is more than just a beauty and cosmetic line. Queen Esther's Beauty, really, it's about embracing the queen within. And so it's where your outer beauty meets your inner queen. Like, that is what we believe in, because again, going back to like what beauty is in the industry, right? And the way women have to look on magazines and be portrayed in all the different medias that we see around us. It's coming back to the notion, okay, who are we? Like, who has God created us to be? And what do we need in our life to allow ourselves to feel beautiful? And so it's redefining beauty in the sense that, you know, women use cosmetics in order to hide their beauty. Um, but I want to help teach women that we really take care of ourselves from a place of self-love rather than self-hate. So a lot of the makeup that you see, I love makeup. Like, I'm a makeup girl because it's just super fun for me. It's creative. I love colors. I just love to play around with it. So, however, it's not my identity. And so for women that sometimes say, well, I don't wear makeup because I'm like comfortable in my skin. Well, sometimes there are women that don't wear makeup because they're really not comfortable in their own skin, so they don't feel deserving of wearing makeup. And here's the other thing. I'm not hiding behind my makeup. That's why skincare for me is incredibly important. So teaching women, look, you're going to use these skincare products not because you want to hide behind anything, but it's from a place of self-love. And so I'm the queen of self-care. I love all things self-care. I am always doing something to take care of me, like from a cup of tea in my like fabulous mug, which by the way says keep your heels, head, and standards high, right? Like, to essential oils and aromatherapy. And I do so much pouring out during the day. Like, I'm pouring out practically all day, to my clients, to in my home, to my husband. I mean, my husband alone is a full-time and I love what I do, but, I need replenishing. And so a lot of times I feel like women are burnt out, single moms, moms in general, with husbands, CEOs of companies. Like, the bigger the responsibility on your plate is really the greater level of self-care you need to have. And it's not just a sales pitch. Like, it honestly is. So as much as I give out and I replenish back, I give out and I replenish back. So that's why beautiful spaces for me are incredibly important, because I feel like as I'm giving, even in this space here, I'm receiving in the space that I'm in. It's this beautiful almost vortex and dynamic that's created in an atmosphere that makes me feel so vibrant, that makes me feel so alive, so joyful. And like, this is me. It's not just like, oh, we're just putting on a show, right? In this interview, like, this is naturally me. And so self-care, it's like, how do we create? Like, sometimes as women, we don't know what to do. And I have a gazillion and one ideas how you can self-care as a woman. And so that's what I love to teach, and learning to just love ourselves from the inside out. So yeah, we have Queen Esther's Beauty. We have a beautiful line of a purification cleanser, of a mask, a hydrator. It's a high-end luxury line for women. It's not like a cheapy brand, because I believe that as women, we deserve the very best. And yes.
That is amazing. Well, for sure, we'll put a link up to your site so that, if anyone's interested in purchasing. And of course, also any of the programs do you have? I don't know if you do anything online with women, but that would certainly be something that I want to put up there. But so I want to shift gears a little bit, because
Sure.
when we did talk, you did tell me that you're from New York, right? And so I kind of wanted you to share just a little bit, as a Latina, what it was like for you growing up back in, I mean, you're still in the East Coast, but you're in the state of Florida right now. So,
Yes.
what was it like for you, just growing up? Any hurdles or anything that you had to cross, or if not, tell us a little bit about your coming into and getting to the place where you are today.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I'm a Bronx native. Like, I love New York. I love my hometown. I miss New York. There is just no place like home, truly. At the age of 10, so I was born in New York, and then I lived there with my mom. And at the age of 10, she sent me away to Ecuador to live with my aunt and uncle. And so my mom is Ecuadorian Chinese, and my dad's Puerto Rican. So I have, a little bit of that combination there of different cultures. And it was culture shock for me because, this is like a huge part of my story and who I am. So, thank you for bringing this up, because I feel like, so much of what has made me who I am today really has to do with so much with my upbringing. And I'm so grateful because when I was sent away at the age of 10, I lived with my aunt and uncle. My parents stayed here. My mom was a full-time mom, and my full-time working, and my dad as well. So there was no childcare for me. I was an only child. And my mom was like, well, there's nothing else I can do with you, and you can't be at home by yourself. So, growing up in the Bronx back then, it was rough. It was, mom on welfare, and, she had to make ends meet, and it was heavy duty back then. So, um, I had an opportunity to really learn about my Ecuadorian and Chinese culture, moving away, and huge culture shock from education, obviously going from an all English school to an all Spanish school.
Wow.
The education system completely different. They dictated a lot of what schooling, teachers just would dictate you. And of course, everything was in Spanish. And I had to learn at the age of 10, start going through that. And so in Ecuador, I was the American girl. And then when I would come back to the States, I was the foreigner because I was coming from another school, another state. And I'm like, no, but you don't understand. I'm American.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And so I felt like no matter where I was, there was never a sense of belonging anywhere, which was incredibly, incredibly difficult to really get a hold of my identity. Like, who am I, right? Like, it gets to the core. And being like, my family in Ecuador, because they're the Chinese side, so I was the darker skin. Like, you probably can't tell here because of lights, but I'm like, I've got my color to me proudly, and so I was always told that I was the most beautiful, darkest, dark skin in the family. And then they would laugh and say, well, you're the only one. So you've got no choice than to be the prettiest dark skinned girl, and you grow up kind of like, you laugh it off, but then you're like, wait, is that really funny? Like, is that supposed to make me laugh and feel good, right? And just the different parts of my Puerto Rican Latina that, body a little more voluptuous than my obviously Chinese Ecuadorian, it was just so many combinations of things. And learning to embrace like who I was ethnically, and being Hispanic in many areas, and being from the Bronx was like, what good can possibly come from the Bronx, right? Like, you come from the Bronx, like, what is that, right? Like, what good can come out of Nazareth, right? Like, we've heard that scripture before. And I think of all of these things, but I'm so grateful because I learned how to become so humble in that season. I saw lots of poverty. I was fortunate because my parents would send me money there, and when money would transfer from one type of money to another, like, I'd have lots of money as a young girl, but that never really, like, I wasn't proud or arrogant about. On the contrary, I would love to give and share, but I saw a lot of poverty. I learned how to make really good ethnic food from scratch. Something that here you can, buy a carton of orange juice in the supermarket there. My uncle would be like, well, go grab the oranges, cut them off, slice them, squeeze them, add water, add the sugar, and you don't drink juice unless you make your own juice. Like,
Wow.
and I feel like I'm kind of like old school. I'm 41 years old, but I feel like I have the soul of just an old schooler, because I learned how to do things, wash our own clothes. Women were taught, like, you learn how to wash your underclothes by hand. Like, that's a woman. That's your duty as a woman. That's what you must learn to do. You learn to cook and you learn to clean. And it was tough, but I can definitely say has been it has allowed me to be so well rounded. And my mom, of course, her biggest reason sending me away, she's like, you have to be perfectly bilingual. That was her language, because you've got to get a good job when you're older. So you've got to be perfectly bilingual. So she made sure that I could read, write, and speak Spanish perfectly. Thanks to her, I can. So, and thanks to her, I've gotten really good jobs because of that. So, yes, so that it was, I feel incredibly fortunate to have, been able to go through that, through my cultures, and learn about it, and with its difficulties and everything. But it's where my strength is today, really.
I think it's so important that you said everything that you said, and mostly because, that's something that I think many of us encounter. Like, even though, I was born and raised here, but my family's from Puerto Rico. Well, I was never really allowed to say I was Puerto Rican because I wasn't born on the island, right? Like, that's the whole idea is like, well, no. And I think also because, like, my grandparents are so old school, you know what I mean? Back in the days, that I think that generation is very proud of, like, well, no, you're American, like you were born on American soil, and I know it's different with Puerto Rico because of the whole citizenship thing, but then growing up, it was like, well, I can't say I'm Puerto Rican, but when people ask me where I'm from, I can't say I'm American either, because clearly you don't look, because apparently, you have to look a certain way to be American. And I'm like, that's not how it works. And so it took me a while to, like what you're talking about, like it takes a while to just, first of all, love the person that you are, like what you were saying about your family, you know what I mean? And I think, colorism is a very big issue within our culture. We don't treat each other with the respect and love that we should, and I've spoken about that a lot, about, and people don't like to talk about it, but how, we say marry light so you could clean the race, you know what I mean? And so these are all realities. And then what you're saying, they're joking, but really it's a jab. And those are the things, like we were talking about earlier, that kill our identity. And so we feel as though I don't deserve to have favor or blessing or be successful because there's something wrong with my skin color. So those are the things that, that we don't really talk about much, and we don't go far back enough to understand why we feel that way. So I just think it's amazing, like I always think about that scripture, everything works for good, right? Like, God never puts us in those situations, but he works those situations out for his
Yes.
benefit and for the benefit of us being in his hands. So I think that that's so key right there. So, like, it sucks that you had to hear that, or even had to go through that, or that was part of it, but it did make you the person that you are today. And then look at what you can do now for other women, because you're like, I am completely whole in my identity. I know exactly who I am. I am unapologetic about the woman that I am, because I was created this way. And then being able to share that with other women. So I think that that's so awesome. I like, not awesome that you went through it, but just awesome that you're at the place now, that you're at that place where you have that strength and that identity. Because, I mean, we're all going to struggle at some point, but ultimately, once you come into the person that you are, there is nothing that anyone can say or do to kind of damage that in you. Because you're like, you know what? 20 years ago, maybe even 10 years ago, but not now. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
that process. So I think, I just, commend your love and desire to help other women. We didn't mention this, but you did say you have a degree, and I want to say this correctly, in social work. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I have a master's in social work.
So, yes, and that's important too. And so, I think it's really important that you're sharing your story because my heart is for our young Latina girls to see Latina women who have degrees, who start their own business, that do different things. Like you can do a lot of things, and it's okay. It may not be easy, but you can get there. And you're the example of that. So I really appreciate you sharing that. So
Yeah, you said some really awesome things because, talking about the challenges that we face, and it's knowing that as queens, we learn to take and transform our pain into power,
yes,
right? And it's learning how to do that, learning how to navigate through pain. I have found that it is a very hard process, but when you have somebody there with you, like the empathic listener to sit with you, and I'm going to sit through this pain with you. Like, let's go there. Let's talk about it. Because if you don't go through here, you can't get to the other side the way that you want to show up. Right. And so it's really women giving themselves permission to be healed and find somebody that they can trust to go through the healing process with them. And I've learned that me by myself, I would have not been able to do it if it wasn't for the support of women that I have found to really support me on this journey. And I've also learned, we have this young group of women through our Princess Academy. We have supporting young women from ages 18 to 28, and it's a pretty young new group that we started. And one of the things I always say is, I wish I had somebody like me when I was younger.
right.
Like, gosh, 18 years old, like, do you know how many mistakes I could have avoided? Like, the worst mistakes of my life. Like, you know, gosh. And it took me forever to have to get out of it and then heal all of that from, like, it's just so much stuff. And so I have so much passion for being in the lives of young women, like you mentioned, the young Latinas, because listen, I want to help you avoid the mistakes that cost me. So at my cost, I'm giving you
Yes.
what hasn't cost you yet, so you don't have to pay for that. And it is such a joy. Like, I feel like God, it's a gift. Like, I feel like God gifts me and continues my healing process through helping other young women heal. Because when we don't know identity, then we begin to make bad decisions in the relationships that we choose, get into abusive relationships, been there, done that, was married and divorced twice before my amazing husband now,
Wow.
abusive relationships. And so we begin to create these patterns in our life that do not serve us, that, have us settling for the very worst version of ourselves. And there's no healing involved. There's just manipulation. There is just all these terrible things. And so sometimes women just don't believe that there is any better, but there is hope. And that I think is the big message, that there is hope, and just find somebody that you can trust and go through the healing process, because it's worth it. It is so worth it. I've had to do so much of it, and I would do it all over again. It's so worth it.
It is, and it is hard, and healing is key. I had someone tell me the other day, and it was just, it hit me like a ton of bricks, but it was so good. And we were just talking about a specific situation, and she says, sometimes we think a cycle is actually a process, but really we're just going in circles. And so we're trying to figure out how we get through something, and like, why am I back in this thought process, or why am I back in this place? But because you get some resolution, just a little bit, so you feel like you're actually going through the process. But no, the process is actually that thing breaking, and then the healing is so painful. And that's why we stay in the cycle, right? Because It's like, no, you know what? I'm just going to go right back to this. I'm just going to go right back to this. And because this is comfortable, I understand this, but really it's not good. And so, what you're talking about, that healing process, is so important. And it is awful. It's painful. It's, snotty nose, swollen eyes, sleepless nights, friends tired of hearing, you going through the same things, family, and it's all of that. But at the end of it, you come out stronger, you come out wiser. And then the things that hurt you, like you said, you have to come to that place until you finally were like, I'm not in that cycle anymore. I'm not getting myself involved with the same type of person in my life. And so that's amazing. And I can't imagine, it's hard. And do you want to, like, to close, just kind of speak into that a little, like, for any woman that may be watching this? Because I think I just get the sense that there might be some women that may have experienced some of what you're talking about with that. And I think we see that a lot now, especially with the pandemic. We're hearing a lot more about abuses and stuff. Is there something that you just want to leave with the women?
Absolutely. As women, sometimes we feel like there's so many things wrong with us because we feel things so deeply. And so when we are in relationships that are abusive with narcissistic personalities, we're sometimes made to feel like everything is our fault. And so there's this sense of like hopelessness, there's this sense of guilt, there's this sense of just powerlessness in, the day-to-day things that we go through. So when we're in that situation, is realize, first of all, we are meant for so much more.
Yes.
We are meant to live loving, abundant lives that are led by the Spirit of God who makes all things new,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I came to understand. That's the moment that my brokenness and my cycle of brokenness like completely disrupted.
Wow.
And there needs to be a disruption in our cycles. And truly, the only one who did that in my life was not a theory that I was looking for. I searched through every theoretical book. I used to sit in Barnes and Noble wondering, like, give me the answer to life. Give me like the answers, like, how do I self-heal, right? Like self-help section was my section, like hours and every day. Barnes and Noble, I made them a lot of money with books. But guess what? At the end of the day, not a single book would give me an answer to what I was looking for. Nothing. Here was my great revelation. This was my process and how I got out of it. I realized that I wasn't looking for a theory. I realized one day that it wasn't a concept and it wasn't something I was going to find in a book that was very well researched with all these amazing articles. It was one person, and it's the person of Jesus, and that was God in my life.
So good.
And he came to disrupt my cycle of poverty mentality, to disrupt my cycle of brokenness, and to tell me, listen, you've been looking at life completely wrong. You don't know what it is to live life. You don't know of all the abundance on the other side that I am here to give you. And that's like, it radically changed my life. I wasn't a religious person. I wasn't somebody that went to church. It wasn't me. That was not my thing at all. But here's what I learned. When we're going through a really desperate situation, we will take anything that comes our way. Thankfully, it was God that came my way. It could have been something really bad and say, hey, try this, right? Like, well, I pretty much tried it all and nothing worked, right? So like God was like, hey, why don't you just try me and see what I could do for you?
Right.
And I was so desperate. I didn't even know what that meant. And I said, okay, just fix me, just help me. And listen, I already started my master's degree. I was pretty much, I think already, probably graduated already, going to therapy once a week. And it's like, my therapist couldn't help me.
Wow.
My
Yeah.
therapist
Wow.
could not help me. I'm in the school of social work trying to figure out other people's lives, really trying to figure out my own, right? And how to diagnose myself. And I just said yes one day. And I said, okay, I will try it your way. And God proved to me in such a radical way. And He literally, it's like my heart was broken in a million little pieces.
Mm.
And here's what I imagine. There's this Japanese art. I won't pronounce it because I don't know. It
Right.
starts with a K. And there's this art that of artists and sculptures that they put these art pieces together. And normally you would put a piece of art or a vase together with regular glue. This beautiful Japanese art, instead of glue, they use gold lining to
Yeah.
put a vase back together. And here's my like big aha when I think of this, and it was like God telling me, not only will I put you back together, but I will make you and your heart more valuable than what it even was before.
That's amazing.
People will be able to see your brokenness, but you're going to come out of it healed already, because I will be the gold lining in your life that will completely transform the way that you see things, because I began to see life differently, began to see myself differently as a woman who was valuable, not as the woman who was told that she wasn't worth much, right? I was told that I had a purpose, which even though I had a degree, I really didn't know my purpose. And so all of these things were the pieces of the puzzle that began to put together and created in me a clean heart, a renewed mind, a new spirit. And it's like I began to live the real life that I was called to live. And so to any woman out there is really, you know what? We don't even have control of the very air that we are breathing in this very second. We
No.
cannot say that we have control of anything. And so as I was singing a song this morning, realizing that every inhale that I took and every exhale that I took, if it wasn't for the grace of God, like I would not be breathing this very second. So giving honor to whom, honor is due, is we got to go back to our creator.
Yes.
And without him, none of this could be and, could ever be. And so finding people that we can trust, not going to relationships that have kept us in a cycle.
Mm.
It's go and find someone. I believe God has placed in everyone someone that can help you. God is always trying to reach out to you through someone, and we say no over and over again. I would say go back to that friend that keeps either inviting you to church, inviting you to a self-help group, inviting you to something. She's inviting you to something and you keep saying no. Go.
Mhm.
You will find your answers there. And you will see life in such amazing and great light, because you were born to shine.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and just for empowering women, even now, right now. And I know that you're going to continue to do so. So I'm so thankful for sharing. And hopefully, we'll be able to do this again soon. So,
Yes.
so much.
Thank you, Selena. Thank you so much.